All right, let's talk about a skill that used to be for specialists but is now, well, pretty much for everyone, using data. We're going to break down why you, no matter what you do for a living, really need to get comfortable with it. So, let me ask you something. Think about the last big decision you had to make at work. What was behind that call? Was it your gut instinct? Maybe years of experience, or did you actually look at the hard facts? That question, it really gets to the heart of this huge shift happening in pretty much every workplace. And you can really see that shift right here. On one side, you've got the old way of doing things, relying on intuition, maybe just going with what the most senior person in the room says, or whoever has the loudest opinion. But on the other side, that's the new standard, using evidence, measuring what's actually happening, and analyzing the results. It's a total move from just guessing to actually knowing. Okay, so let's dig into that first part. What's the problem with just sticking to guesswork? I mean, what are the real risks when you just ignore all the data that's floating around you? Well, here's the fundamental change. Companies now view data as one of their most valuable assets. Seriously, it's right up there with the money in the bank, the people on your team, and the time you have in a day. And what that means is that it's now everyone's job to manage it and use it, not just a few analysts tucked away in some back office. There are a few big myths that really hold people back, and this lays them out perfectly. First, the idea that data is just for tech people. The reality is everyone works with it now. Sales, HR, marketing, you name it. Then there's the myth that it's just too complicated to learn. Nope, basic literacy is actually pretty straightforward. And maybe the biggest one of all, that data is here to replace us. Not at all. It's here to support our judgment and make us even better at what we do. So if it's not about becoming some kind of coding genius, what does using data actually mean for the rest of us? Let's get into it, because it breaks down into something much simpler than you probably think. The whole thing really comes down to this one term, data literacy. It's just the ability to read data, understand it, ask good questions about it, and then use it to back up your decisions. And look at that last line, because it's so important. It's about building your confidence to use facts, not about learning how to code. And when you put it into practice, it's really just these 4 simple things. First, just figure out what information is actually relevant to your specific job. Second, be able to look at a simple chart or a dashboard and get the main idea. Third, get a little curious. Ask questions about what you're seeing. And finally, use that info to support your ideas. That's it. That's the core of it. Okay, so we know what it is, but what's in it for you, right? Why should you even care? Well, this next part is all about the payoff. The real, concrete benefits that data skills bring to literally any job. And the advantages are pretty huge. First off, you just make better decisions, smarter, less risky choices. Second, you get way more efficient and productive because you can spot where to save time and resources. You'll also find yourself communicating and collaborating better because when you're using data, debates become objective conversations. And of course, it is fantastic for your career growth. It just makes you a much more valuable professional. And this isn't just some abstract idea. I mean, look at these examples. For a marketer, it's about targeting the right customers instead of just hoping for the best. For a salesperson, it's about knowing which leads are actually worth pursuing. In HR, it's about analyzing performance fairly and consistently. You can see how every single role gets sharper and more strategic. All right, feeling motivated? Let's get really practical and talk about your toolkit. What are the core skills you actually need to start building, right now? Here are the 5 essentials. First is data awareness. That's just knowing what information your company even has. Then, data interpretation, basically being able to read a chart. Critical thinking is huge. It's about not just accepting data, but asking, hey, where did this come from? Then you need to be comfortable with basic tools like spreadsheets. And finally, understanding the ethics of it all, privacy, accuracy, and all that. And let me be really clear about this. None of this requires you to be a tech wizard. This is all about developing a mindset and then practicing these skills over and over until they just become second nature. Think of it like a habit, not a homework assignment. So now let's zoom all the way out and look at the big picture, because this isn't just about being a little better at your job tomorrow. In this last section, we're going to see why data literacy is absolutely non-negotiable for your future. I want you to just let that quote sink in for a second. In a data-driven world, ignoring data is a strategic disadvantage. There's no opting out anymore. Choosing not to engage is basically choosing to fall behind. So what's the cost if you don't adapt? Well, the risks are pretty clear. You end up making poor decisions based on incomplete info. You're going to miss out on opportunities that your more data-savvy colleagues and competitors are going to spot. And honestly, you just raise the risk of failure for your projects, and maybe even for your company. This really says it all. As things like AI and automation get woven into everything we do, our ability to work with these systems, to understand and act on the data they give us, that's what's going to separate the people who thrive from the people who just struggle to keep up. So I'll leave you with this final thought. When you're thinking about your next project, or your next big presentation, or heck, even your next career move, are you going to approach it as a guess, or are you going to make it data-driven? The choice, as they say, is yours. Thanks for tuning in.